All right, so today's video is just basically an experiment. A little while ago I did these coasters with the crushed velvet technique, and in the last little bit I've been wondering what in the world happens if I put in bubble wrap and let that sit. So let's just see. So I've got my resin already mixed here, ready to go. Follow the directions for the resin that you're using. I'm using Moss Epoxies, and it's 1 part of each, part A and parts B, and then mix it really well. So I'm going to fill this mold 1/3 of the way up, and then I'm going to use my heat gun to remove all of the bubbles. I happened to get a lot of bubbles in it this time while I was mixing it. So it's going to take a little bit, and typically what I'll do is after removing the bubbles the first time, I will let it sit for a bit, let the rest of them rise to the top, because they do rise to the top, and every 10 minutes or so I'll go and pop the ones that have risen to the top. If there's anything stubborn in the first little bit that is not rising to the top, like you can see there's some that you can just see are stuck to the side of your mold. In that case, I will get a toothpick and just kind of release them. But I am going to wait for the next 10-15 minutes or so, remove the rest of the bubbles, and then I'm going to put my plastic wrap in there. So I'm going to pause this video and we'll see you back in a bit. All right, so I spent the last 10 minutes or so releasing all the bubbles that I want, and I'm quite happy with it. One thing to do or to note is don't wait too long, because you don't want your resin to start setting before you get to the point where you're putting your bubble wrap in there. So I'm going to start from the center, and because I've been using my heat gun on my resin, it's quite soft and liquidy right now. So I'm going to press that bubble wrap in there, and once I'm satisfied with that, I am going to set it aside to cure. You can probably do about 12 hours before you rip or pull the plastic wrap off. I'm waiting till tomorrow morning. That way I'm alone and I can do it by myself without anyone in the house. All right, moment of truth for the coasters. Did they work? Oh, that looks cool. Bubble wrap comes out super easy. There is a few bits of plastic left in there that's stuck, but that's okay. So the next step here is I have this beautiful set of micas here. I'll put a link to them below. So the next step, clearly this is one of the ones I haven't opened yet. So this one here is called Cyan. And what I'm gonna do is brush it over top of the resin here. Now when you're starting, you can just dip and go right into it. As you're getting towards the end, best to dip and then tap the excess off so that you don't end up with a lot of excess mica in there. I can't wait to see what these are going to look like after the next step. I predict they're going to look pretty cool. I'm getting towards the end, so I don't want to have too much excess mica in there. There we go. So the next step is to pour over here with a batch of black colored resin. So I'm going to mix that up. I didn't want to mix it up ahead of time because I didn't want to assume it was going to work out. I wanted to see that it worked out first before getting my resin all ready. So I will be back in a moment with some black resin. All right, so I've got some black resin mixed here. So it's just my regular resin mix, but I've added some black acrylic paint. And if you're new to resin, when you add acrylic paint or any liquid colorant to your resin, make sure you don't, whatever the volume of resin you have, make sure that not more than 10% is whatever you're using to color it, because it's going to affect how it sets. It won't set right if you add too much of the extra liquid. So I'm trying to get as much as I can out of my cup because whatever is left in the cup is basically wasted. So and then spread it around. All right, now heat gun to get all the bubbles out. And I'm just using it on low heat. I don't need to move anything around. I'm just using the heat to release the bubbles. So for the next probably about hour or so, half an hour or so, depending on how it slows down, the bubbles will continue to float to the top. So I will go about every 5-10 minutes or so and use my heat gun to release them. If I get any hairs that have flown in there, and I can see one right here, or little pieces of dust, just use a little toothpick to scoop it up. You can do that for about the first hour, so you can do it sometimes a little bit later. It just depends on how quickly your resin is setting. So for something like this, because this side is going to be the back, I'm not really too worried if I wait too late. But it's always nice to get those little bits out of there that affect the curing. And I can already go back and just release some bubbles there. The other thing you could do is take a misting bottle with some isopropyl alcohol, and you can use that to release the bubbles and just spray it periodically. And again, you'll start to see when the bubbles start to slow down their rise to the surface that you don't really need to do it as much anymore. And you'll get to the point where you don't really need to. There may be the odd straggler, but they usually come up fairly quick. So I will see you tomorrow when I demold this. All right, moment of truth. Let's see how this turned out. Oh, that looks cool. So there is a little bit of a lip on here, which happens in mold anyways. So you can either pour some clear or black resin on here to get rid of that, or you can trim the edges down. I'm gonna leave them as they are for right now because this was just an experiment, but that looks really, really cool. It'd even be cool just to do, say, part of it or whatever. It would make it a lot more interesting, I think. But very happy with how that turned out. And you can use pretty much anything to do this, to add texture that's non-porous. Like you wouldn't want to use cardboard or something for that because the resin would absorb the cardboard and you'd never be able to get it out to add the mica powders and stuff like that. So check around, look at your house, see what there is. Very cool.